Hey everyone, this is my online webinar where for the next 30 minutes I'm going to be answering some of your questions I put out on Instagram with Continental Tyres that I wanted you all to ask me whatever you want to know about me, about the sport, about mountain biking, about Continental, whatever it is. And I've chosen 20, if not more, of my favourites. But more importantly, I've chosen questions where I think you could learn something. It's all very well me speaking about my experiences, but unless I kind of convey that in a way that you can take something from this session, it's kind of irrelevant. So I hope I'm going to inspire some of you, I'm going to educate you, and maybe help you with any problems or just to benefit from this. So, talking of inspiration, question one, which I selected, is who was my childhood inspiration? And the answer is Andrea Lacondaghi. I grew up where Facebook, Instagram, all of those things weren't a thing. And to discover mountain biking and who your favourite rider was, you had to like dive into magazines and buy DVDs. And if you bought a DVD and you spent all your pocket money on a mountain bike film, you didn't watch it once, you didn't watch it twice, you watched it every single day when you got home from school, every night, every morning, until you knew it inside out. I still listen to the songs today from mountain bike movies that I listened to and watched. I'm 26 now. When I was 11, I got into mountain biking pretty much when I was 11, 15 years ago. And Andrea Lacondaghi had the highlight section of any movie for me. It was in New World Disorder 8, some of you will remember that movie. It was Billy Talent, Devil in the Midnight Mass was the tune. And Andreu, for me, was just the rock star of mountain biking. He had tattoos, which I thought was crazy. He'd send it, he'd crash all the time. Now, these videos you see of pro riders, it's all about being perfect, it's all about perfection, and you only release a video when you've landed everything dialed and perfectly. Andreu's was like 50% crashes. He'd put a trick in the video that he never even landed. He'd just try stuff, die, get back up and then do something different, but it was still sick to see him like shirtless sending it and crashing. So Andrea was the man for me, and I still really look up to him, and I'm ever so lucky to have ridden with him, competed against him, hung out with him at Red Bull Rampage. Yeah, so to be inspired by someone, then meet them and realise they're just as cool as you ever imagined is the best. So shout out to Andreu for that. Question two, bit of a curveball. What is my favourite dessert? And I'm not one of these hot cold guys. I kind of get thrown off when I put like hot chocolate brownie in my mouth and then follow it up with some freezing cold ice cream. So forget the ice cream, it's hot chocolate brownie. Damn. Question three, I've got the questions down here, that's why I keep looking down. My favourite video I've ever made has to be Frames of Mind. And if you're watching this, I'll have probably already shot, if not be working on, the replacement of that video, a big Red Bull project, which I've got my teeth into now, which I can't wait for you guys to see. But kind of the prequel to that, and my first massive stamp in the move, in like the big mountain bike video sector, was Frames of Mind, where I did loop-the-loops, and a really iconic trick was a backflip where I took my feet off, landed on a log and did a bomb drop back in, which I'm looking to now develop, potentially in this new video. Loads of things like that, and it was my opportunity to be creative. Being a slopestyle rider, I haven't actually really explained exactly what it is I do. Like, slopestyle rider, free ride is all about creativity and showing people like how you want to perceive mountain biking. You get given this time in the air from a jump, from a steep takeoff, but everyone will do something different on that ramp. When you compete head to head, everyone's got a different style, everyone's got a different trick bag, but to film a video that doesn't corner you into how much airtime you have or what jumps are on the course. You get to build your own course, and that's, well, in this particular example I did that, and that was a huge opportunity because I could do things that aren't possible on a slopestyle course. I knew were possible in my head, but without that course, without that build, without that project, I'd have never got to show you guys. So Frames of Mind was it for me. And then we have question four, which is what is my favourite trick? And that always changes, because favourite, most people want to know what your hardest trick is or what's your best trick. But my favourite trick, I want to say it's just the three. I say just the three. Going back to the previous question, talking about style, where everyone rides differently, 360s is a prime example of a trick where you either just spin 360 degrees or you go off axis, you do flat spins, you do barrel rolls. Even motocross bikes call slightly off axis backflip a 360. So like there is an infinite number of styles of that trick. And for me, if a rider has what I think is an awesome style, they're going to show that best through whips and through 360s. But it's, actually it's double backflips. double flips. I've done them at Crankworks. We'll throw a couple on the screen now. Double flips are just, they are hard. They're not my hardest trick, but when I do them, I'm just freaking out. It's hectic. You look back, you look at the floor while you're still spinning. It's too late to bail. You've got to go around again. You have to pop more than twice as hard as a flip, but then slow it down halfway through. And after doing them for 5 years, 6 years, they still freak me out just as much. So the 360 thing was true, but my favourite trick is a double backflip. We've had favourite, what is the worst case I've ever had, which is where you come up short on a jump. Imagine the landing starts here, perfectly. To case a jump, you're going to land like at least halfway through the bike. And I did that, actually the bike's up, I'm going to grab the bike now. This bike here, I know I've gone, I'm back. Dude, look how many spiders are on it. This has been on the wall for like half a year. Oh, this is sick. This bike did the biggest case I think anyone's ever done at Woburn. And yeah, we built these massive jumps called the Burn Line, and I wanted to ride them on a hardtail. Everyone thought they were only rideable on a downhill bike. Cased it with this frame, and I've bent the forks so much. I mean, the frame's solid, but the forks were bent like a banana. There's so many spiders on this. And I can't get them out. They're bent and permanently exist inside this frame, which is why it lives on the wall. Yeah, I'm sure we just put that on the screen, but that was my worst ever case, and I don't think I'll ever trump that. The noise it made was biblical, and it still gets talked about today, mostly by me. Question 5.5, this one got added in. What is my favourite backyard trails feature? So, if that's a weird question to you, during lockdown, me and who's filming this video, Ben moved in, and we built trails in my backyard, not too far away, and they're insane. We dug jump after jump after jump after jump, pumps, berms, rollers, hips, filmed the whole thing, made 23 episodes building videos. They got millions of views, and like the whole world was watching what was going on in my garden, which was sick. And my favourite feature of the whole thing, and I'm going to talk a bit more about digging later. Digging's an important thing in mountain biking. A lot of people from other sports won't appreciate this, and if you're new to it, you might not have discovered it yet, but digging complements riding more than you can imagine. And I'm dribbling again. My favourite feature is the narwhal, which is this steep feature where you actually have to pull backwards and land into another landing called El Grande. And if you haven't watched the series, that means nothing to you, but I'm sure it's being shown, and it was sick. It was like defies the laws of physics, pulling back, landing, and then carrying on. And I did backflips on it and things, which was sick. So that was an epic few weeks. A lot of people did nothing. A lot of people worked really hard. I dug through lockdown, which was sick. Question 6: what PSI do I run in my tyres? That's difficult to answer because I'm very lucky. I've got more than one bike. But dirt jump bike, which I spend the most time on and have over the years, I've spent a lot of time fiddling around with tyre pressures, and weirdly, like getting different tyres and coming on board with Continental, I wanted to like relearn what's right for me again. Back in the day, I used to run 85, if not 90 PSI on tyres that were limited at 60. Thankfully, they didn't explode, but I always thought it was about having maximum pressure. I brought that down now, and I run more like 70, 65, and I run a Race King on the front and a Speed King on the rear on my dirt jump bikes, which is still insanely hard, don't get me wrong, but slopestyle is all about carrying speed, so you can go as big as possible. So you want to flick your tyre and it not make that noise, but like make a ping ping noise. Is that a good impression? Probably not. Yeah, but they're rock hard. They're so hard, and you can run it even hard. I run probably 70 in the front and 65 on the back, because having some front suspension reduces the need to have even a bit of sponginess. Whereas a bike like this, trail bikes, enduro bikes, which I'm sure more of you guys watching are interested in, there's no good answer for that. I do like to run them really low. When tubeless got brought in and things like cushcore and inserts that you can put inside your tyre to allow you to run less pressure, that was a big factor, because less pressure does feel better for me. But when you go into a corner really hard and want to like burp the tyre for a video, you end up just letting a bit out before you film that anyway. So always softer in the front than the rear, always, no matter what. I've never done anything differently. The rear I'll run as low as 22, but not much lower, and the front usually closer to the 30 mark actually, but yeah, like on a wet day when you're riding routes, I'll run them as soft as physically possible. And yeah, these Kaiser tyres, I put these on in a video on YouTube. I was running like slightly smoother tyres, and then this was like, a lot of people ask also about upgrades and what are easy upgrades for bikes. Tyres is a fascinating thing. Like, it's not changing your tyres, you might not consider an upgrade, but if it's suiting you more to the style of riding you're doing, there is no bigger upgrade. That's all that anchors you to the ground. When you go around a corner, it's all that's going to keep you upright. You might have the lightest frame, the sickest carbon bars, the most expensive titanium cranks. Your tyres are no good if they're not fit for that day's riding. All that stuff goes out the window, and you wish you just spent a few extra quid, a few extra euros, whatever, on the right tyres. So, if you can afford it, you want to have more than one set of tyres at home. You want wet weather tyres, you want dry weather tyres, you want hard pack tyres. So it's super important, and not just because Continental are like running this whole thing and this Q&A session, but because that is it. If Formula 1 drivers like didn't have an interest in tyres, but they were trying to make their car lighter or more powerful, they might have 10,000 horsepower. They haven't got good tyres, they're going to come last. They're not even going to have fun, it's going to be horrible, they'll probably crash and die. So tyres are pretty important. Yeah, for mountain bikes as well, not just Formula 1. What's the most scared I've ever... I haven't got the names, by the way, for these questions, but yeah, be assured they're very good questions, and thank you. What's the most scared I've ever been? I mean, not always... I've been nervous about things that I know I can do. Filming videos is hardcore because there's a lot of pressure when the course has been built and the trick might not work, but the most like scared, physically, like that makes me feel physically sick situation are big competitions, and there's no bigger one than Red Bull Joyride in Whistler. Honestly, there's usually more than one helicopter in the sky that's deafening, filming you. There's 40 to 50,000 people on the hill. You can't see a single face, but that you know they're all looking at you. There's that many people. You come around this ladder drop, go off this first drop, and you just see it all. And by that point, I've done like a flat drop backflip or a truck off of a drop, and you're into the run. But that little lead up to that, it honestly feels like you're going to melt, like your legs go weak. It's really, that's hardcore, because you're not even in a race where like imagine in a motocross race you're one of 20 guys and all eyes might not be on you. In slopestyle, every pair of eyes are on you. There's not like whether or not you crash, do good tricks or bad tricks, like they're still going to watch. So yeah, that's like your time to perform, and it's exhilarating, but it's stressful and scary. But what comes out of that fear and failure or whatever happens is always positive. It's mega. The feeling at the bottom of a slopestyle course, nothing comes close, because if you get to the bottom, you've survived. If you got to the bottom, you've done your run that you pretty much planned, which means you've done the best tricks you could do all year. You've saved it for that week, and there's other riders there that have done the same. So it's a sick feeling, especially in Whistler. I can't even read my writing. What's the most stoked I've been? The most stoked I've been, like I kind of just talked about that, but that's not necessarily stoked. That's like relief and reward, I think. The most stoked I've been, just the most buzzing, was landing that trick I talked about earlier where my feet go on that log, the hitching post backflip, bomb drop. I never came up with a good name for it. Because it took 9 solid hours to figure it out. I changed everything: the height of the log, the height of the roll-in, the height of the takeoff, the distance from the takeoff to the log, the distance from the log to the landing. There was only one set of measurements and criteria that was going to make that trick work, and I had one day to figure it out. I started that filming project with that trick, and for it all to come together after a lot of people, even like the film crew, we had this like phantom camera that shot 1,000 frames a second, 4K, cost hundreds of thousands of pounds on hire. Like, those guys definitely thought it wasn't happening. You could see it in their faces. They're like, what is going on here? This isn't going to work. But it did, and that was like, that took me from absolute like negativity and doubt. I definitely had doubt, to like, okay, if I put my mind to something, it's not only possible, but I can achieve it in a relatively short space of time, given the opportunity and the resources, which for that was a dirt kicker and a log. So, how long have I been? Let's have a look. I want to speed up. I've been 15 minutes. Wow, I've only done 8 questions. Question 9, how important is digging and building? I talked about this earlier. Digging is everything. Without trail builders, you guys wouldn't ride trails. If you've never built a trail and you've only ridden other people's trails, you need to build trails because they're putting in the hard work and you're enjoying it for them. That's not always the best solution. But most importantly, if you build a jump, you will always hit it. When you build a jump, you don't get that, I don't know if I can do this, how fast do I have to go? You just know. You've been staring at it for so long, you definitely know how fast you have to go. You've shaped the lip yourself. It's the best feeling when you drop in, hit it, and it always goes pretty close to plan actually. But most importantly, if you build jumps, you have the freedom to change them. You can build a right hip and then next week turn it into a left hip, and you don't have to travel the lengths and breadths of the country to find that left hip to do a trick on. And for me, it was the digging that opened up opportunities and tricks, because if I remember the first time I wanted to do a backflip, there wasn't the right shape takeoff for it. I wanted a super kicky one. I was only 13. We built one onto a super soft landing, which, because we could smash it up, make it soft, and therefore I learnt to flip. Whereas other people have to go pretty far to find a jump, ask permission for it to be hit. If you are lucky enough to find somewhere you can put a spade in the ground, knock up a kicker, build a landing, you're not only lucky, but you've got the tools, the skills and the work ethic to be a pro mountain biker. I think it stems from the desire to build jumps as much as it does the desire to ride them, but that's me. The best dirt jumps. Someone's asked what are the best dirt jumps. Well, of all the ones I've ridden, and this, like, I'm very specific about what I like about dirt jumps, and the ones in my backyard are epic, but they're not the best in the world. The best in the world in my eyes are gorge road trails in New Zealand, and I've got two answers for this because they're so different. Those are obscene. Like, look at these photos of them. There's hips, transfers, you can ride them in so many ways. But my other favourites, and I've talked about this a lot in my YouTube videos, is Jimmy Pratt's trails in the south of London. They have been built over almost 20 years. It's coming up on 20 years of digging, purely by hand, no diggers, no machines, constant battles with the council to keep them open, and they are just a realm of creativity, hard work, like digging clay. Imagine having to get clay out the ground into a wheelbarrow, walk it to where it's needed, then move it onto the jump again, then pad it in, then the next year it collapses, then you've got to throw it back up. So all those jumps have been built, destroyed, built, destroyed, and they're just a treat to ride. It is the most amazing feeling, and like this POV footage of it shows how epic trails can really feel. So they're my favourite dirt jumps in the world, the two spots, but they are it. The next question is quite similar. We've had the best dirt jumps. Someone wanted to know what the coolest bike park is. That's going to be a quick answer, and for me it's Whistler. It has everything. It has everything. You get better at riding from going to Whistler, and for me I knew about it when I was 10, but I didn't go there till I was 18 or 19. But it opened up a world of opportunity, seeing Red Bull Joyride, seeing those slopestyle jumps, meeting Brandon Semenuk, who I still idolise to this day. Loads of things have come out of going to Whistler. It's like it's the holy grail of mountain biking. Someone's asked what my next trick is, and that's always difficult to answer, but right now I do know, because I've filmed an episode on my YouTube channel already about it, and it's a 1080. And I don't want to confuse you guys with what a 1080 really is. It's 3 full spins on a bike, which Nikolai Rogatkin did and David Godziak does now in slopestyle competitions. They call it a 1080, it's not, and this is controversial, it's a twister. It's like a corked 720 with a cash roll finish. It's not a pure 10. A solid 1080 is 3 spins on one axis, literally like this. Is that 3? Yeah. That was 3. That's a 1080. Not like going, if I jumped upside down and held the chair and removed a 360, judges would call it a 1080, but it's not. And Mike Montgomery tried one of those. Like, I was watching a video on Pink Bike, honestly could have been 10 years ago, of him dying trying. Not literally, but he was like having some big crashes. And it's still never been done. Not on a mountain bike, but BMXers can do them so easily. So I'm going to land a 1080 on a mountain bike. And Nikolai, you're a good friend of mine. You'll hopefully pat me on the back and congratulate me, even though you now do 1440s, which aren't really 1440s. But we can shake hands and agree that we've just got different approaches to these numeric labelling of degrees and spins. That's my next trick, presumably, if it happens quick, but it's on the list. Someone's asked what are some easy bike upgrades? I've definitely already answered that, and it's tyres. You could even argue that upgrading your bike is like going tubeless or changing your pressures. It's not getting your credit card out and buying the craziest kit, but it's definitely upgrading your bike. Like getting the right PSI or the right bar in your tyres for a day's riding, is that upgrade? I feel like that's upgrading your bike. And like I said earlier, like changing to these tyres, the Der Kaisers, I went straight to Revolution Bike Park in Wales, and it was worlds apart experience having those tyres for a proper big, like, it's not big mountain, but it's a proper mountain bike park. It was wet, it was rugged, it was rocky. These have so much support. These tyres specifically, I feel like, show themselves in late braking. Like they dig in and they cut in and they bite so late into a turn, so it feels like I'm in a race car where I can get on the brakes and stay on the brakes almost when I'm turning in, which is rare. On mountain bikes, you brake in a straight line and then you get off the brakes. But these tyres are incredible. Really, 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 really cool. And I run them on this bike, which is 29-inch wheels. I run them on my San Quentin, which has got 27.5-inch wheels. I don't run them on a dirt jump bike. They wouldn't be very good dirt jump bike tyres. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, your style of riding, or even riding on that day, is pivotal on what tyres you have. So there isn't one good set. There isn't one perfect set for the job. It's always going to change wherever you are in the world or what the weather's doing that day. That's all the questions I've written down. So, Ben, can you ask me some random questions? How long have I been? This is a webinar, isn't it? Have I been?
22 minutes.
Have I educated people?
You've educated me, mate.
Have you? What? Really? Have you learned anything about me you didn't already know?
The tyre thing's important.
Tyres, yeah.
I didn't really think that.
I've got 7 minutes left.
Yeah.
What do you
Like
want
your
to know?
comparison to racing cars is cool.
Yeah, but yeah. G Atherton. Yeah, there's also going to be another webinar with G and Rach. And when I chat, G's a fascinating guy to talk about bike setup and tyres especially. Like I'm a slopestyle rider, and you could get away with running tyres that aren't the best. However, now I do have the best ones. Like, it shows itself. But downhill racers, it's everything. Like, they put on brand new tyres for a race run. And I'm sure, hopefully, G and Rach are going to talk about that in their webinar, because talking to G about tyres is so interesting. Like, about that late braking, about how they hook up. That's an interesting term, hooking up. I get, like, you do, until you experience it, you don't know what that means. But when you feel like your tyre is giving you so much support and so much grip in corners and through rough sections, and they're hooking up, it's the best feeling. You feel like your bike has your back, and yeah, that feeling goes out the window if your setup's not right. So I'm excited to listen to their chat about tyres. I hope they talk about tyres. It's a big deal. I'm just going to ask myself questions. What's my favourite hot meal? See, I've put myself on the spot there. Something deep fried, something unhealthy.
Halloumi related.
Halloumi, deep fried, yeah. Deep fried breaded halloumi sticks with a sweet chilli dip, accompanied with nachos. Nachos are it. Whistler, I told you about how good Whistler is. The other discovery I had in Whistler was how nachos can be so life-changing. They're an incredible invention. Guacamole is like really changed my outlook on the world when I realised you could smash up an avocado, put it on tortilla chips and put it in your mouth, and it's euphoric. Ben, what you got for me?
I really don't know.
Biggest jump I've ever hit was a step down at X Games where I broke my collarbone. Best result was Colorado Freeride Festival, where I got a wild card to compete in Red Bull Joyride for the first time. Biggest crash, oh, there's been so many. That one at X Games was big. I shattered my wrist twice. Once doing a tiny jump. Watch out for small jumps, they'll get you more than big jumps. And that's true, actually. Like, massive jumps have big landings, and big landings you can roll down, but little jumps usually have another little jump right after them, and when you crash on a little jump you hit the next takeoff, that upslope, and that is like that's gnarly. So some people say, how do you get over the fear of riding big jumps? Just look at them as the safer option, because they actually are. And you'll probably welcome yourself. You'll look at it and think, that is the jump for me. I'm going to be so much safer rolling down that 100-foot landing than crashing into that 3-foot vertical takeoff that's going to hit me in the face. I've never thought of it like that. Big jumps are safer.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
You said how contests normally you feel super, super nervous about.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a contest which you actually found purely just fun, that you felt really relaxed at, where you just weren't even nervous at all?
Yeah. Crankworks, Rotorua, the first time I ever went, I felt like I had the wind at my back, I was on the crest of a wave and I was invincible. I was learning tricks in practice that I'd never done before. Like there's a really, really big jump at the end where I was doing opposite cork sevens, and in 2017 that was quite new to slopestyle. Massive jump, and I just figured them out there on the day because I had the air time. And then every jump I was doing the best trick I could, like double flips, flat drop flips, decades. I got quite good at 720s at that point. There's this huge dirt to dirt jump, and I decided I was just going to do a 720 on it. It would have been probably the world's biggest just normal 720. 30-mile-an-hour takeoff that was. There was the guy was, honestly, we had a speed gun there, and I just took off. Again, was so relaxed, so positive, almost smiling, like just, oh, this is going to be a huge 7, it's going to feel sick, and just crashed really bad. And that was the second time I shattered my wrist on a big jump, and I could see the bone like poking up, and I knew I'd smashed it to bits. And ever since, Rotorua was cursed for me. I knocked myself out, I missed it another year. I've never actually competed there. But at that point, that was like a highlight of my career, where I felt like on a wave. And that feeling's sick, but you almost don't want to hold on to it, because it will bite you in the arse. Like you see it with so many riders when they're at their prime. When it gets taken away from you by an injury or someone beating you, it's really hard to deal with. But yeah, to answer your question, I felt invincible then. And that year leading up to that was a series of good results, like a competition in Switzerland called Bike Days. I did the first 720 no-hander in a competition, and I just, like that whole week, I just felt really, like I knew I was going to do something new. I felt really good about it. But like I've just described, I haven't felt like that for ages. I find it harder now to know everything's going to be sweet. I don't think about the consequences more, but I weigh up whether or not I'm actually going to land the run. I don't just assume I'm going to land it, because I've had those injuries that have set me back for 6 months, and then another 6 months where you're aching and your wrist cracks when you get out of bed. Like, I've been professional for 8 years, and to lose a whole year to like pain and injury is a big chunk, and you can't afford to do that too often. So I don't want to put anyone off though. Injuries shape you, you learn from them. Like, all success comes from failure. Like, being bedbound and watching mountain bike movies is super important. You build a plan, you know what tricks you're going to come back to and return to, and the muscle memory doesn't go away. So it might have taken you 4 years to learn a tail whip. If you have a year off a bike, you will still be able to tail whip, because you've learnt that thing. So you never go backwards, you just lose time. And I'm really going on and on now, but yeah, the cycle of like progression, setback, injury, success is what it's all about for me. I think like people who just go from win to win to win to win aren't shaping their own path. They're more like, well, they are, like you get on a roll and you become that legend that won everything, but then when that's taken away from you, it's very difficult to like readjust and point your focus at something new, because all you think about is winning. I think my whole career I haven't had loads of wins. I wish I'd had more, but I've always sort of channeled focus into other things, whether it's building courses, doing videos, or being creative with new tricks that don't happen at competitions, that don't put you on the podium, but they still kind of stamp your name in the books of achieving something. I think if you can do all of those things, not necessarily to their maximum, but just spread yourself across those different categories, I'm hoping it's going to, I'm talking about myself here, but I'm hoping that like it's going to deliver like a more longevity with a career. But I do want to have those big wins. So, and I also want to do more videos, and I also want to learn new tricks. and do those in videos. So the course of action isn't clear, but there's a lot I want to still do. Nothing against guys who win everything. They're cooler than me. They're just... It must suck when you stop winning. That has been a webinar. They're always difficult to get all the questions in. I did run out of your questions. I should have written down more. But yeah, I'd have found it fascinating listening to Andrea Lecondigui talk about all the strengths and weaknesses of his story and talk about what he's done over his life. So if I've taught you anything, that's sick. If I've inspired you in any way, that's mega. And if you haven't got this far, then I guess nothing's lost. So thanks guys, and thanks Continental for the opportunity. I look forward to hearing Rachel and G's webinar as well. Don't miss that. And I'll see you guys very soon. Legends.